farmers fair is happening right now. There are literally hundreds of thrangs taking place every day as people race to get their golden pocket item. The lash is great for tanks because it has high mitigations, both physical and tactical mitigations, and the bell is great for DPS, healers, or support class because of the high crit ratings and high finesse. The best group composition is going to contain 1 tank, 1 heal, 1 CC, and 3 DPS. If you're going to have a Guardian tank, then it's best to take a Minstrel healer along so that you have reses. Similarly, if you take a Cappy tank, it doesn't really matter if you're taking a mini healer or a Rune Keeper along. The bear can go either way. The bear can either tank or heal. However, if the bear is healing tier 2 alone, it's best to pair him with another healer as well. So then you would run 2 healers. CC is very important because you're going to want to be able to lock down the summoner, and the lore master and the burglar both have excellent CC skills to do that. And then the 3 DPS can be anything, can be warden, hunter, or champ. Hunters have definitely a much easier time in the fight, but champs do so much AoE that they're also very useful to run. Brawlers, however, they can go either way. Brawlers can also tank if they're good tanks, but typically we see them more in the DPS support role. And then wardens are excellent at DPS. If you cannot find an alum or a berg for your group, then it is very important that you fill that role with another DPS class. The reason being, instead of then CCing the summoner, you will have to kill the summoner very quickly before it's able to summon all of the worms. Thanks to my friend Jay for providing me with the screenshot of the arena. The trickiest part of the Thrang fight is knowing where to position. There will be fumaroles that will be spawning all over the place as indicated by the yellow circles. Once you move into about a 12-meter range with the fumarole will start to induct. And then after a couple of seconds, the fumarole will explode. When it explodes, any light or medium armor that is in its vicinity will pretty much insta-die. Typically, only the tanks and the heavies can be close to the fumarole. When that goes off, they will still take damage, but they hopefully won't die if they're above 50% health. There are 2 approaches when it comes to where you want to position. The first approach would be to be on the left stairs. If you stand on those stairs and everybody is grouped up there, it is great because the group will remain out of the range of the fumaroles. However, the problem with that method is you have to allow the tank to go in first, pop the fumaroles, get aggro on Thrang before the entire group moves to the stairs. I've seen it too often where the group charges in and 1 or 2 people die because they don't realize that that fumarole is going to explode. The safest option, in my opinion, is for the group to group up at the 9 o'clock position here, where the second X is. If the range stands there and the tank stands by the left stairs and tanks all the mobs and the bosses there, that is the perfect scenario. You can still have the other melee classes on the steps behind the boss, but if the range just stays on the left 9 o'clock side, there's really no need for the ranged to move, with the exception of the LM, because the summoner is going to be spawning on the right steps and you want to be able to lock it down as soon as it pops up. The first order of business will be to kill the Defiler. The reason being that the Defiler heals up everything in its surrounding. The Defiler will do a gray bar induction that if it is not interrupted with a fellowship maneuver from a Berg or the Guardian, it will put a poison bleed on the entire fellowship. So if you don't take a Berg or a Guard with you, then be sure to take a Mini with you or a Cappy so that they can do a group cleanse. Otherwise, everybody will have to take responsibility for potting their own poisons, and if they don't, they will die from it. The next target will be the Scrapper, because it puts a debuff on the tank that makes them more susceptible to damage when the fumarole explodes. Now it is time to start killing Thrang. The goal here is to target
Thrang and AoE off of him as much as possible to get rid of any other ads that spawn. If you're running tier 2, then the scrapper will spawn again, and you will have to switch back to killing the scrapper so that the debuff doesn't get on the tank before you can then go back and kill Thrang. And so you'll ping pong back and forth between the scrapper and the boss. As a tank, your most important job is going to be to keep aggro on Thrang the boss and all of the ads to prevent the ads from going to the minstrel or the DPSers. Now, as soon as the Defiler dies, Thrang is gonna jump down from his platform to the ground and he's gonna do a big induction. As the guard, your main job at that point is to run over to Thrang and interrupt that induction. If he gets that induction off, it's almost an instant wipe every single time. Then after that, there's gonna be still some ads that need to be cleaned up, such as the scrapper has to be gone. And then if you do not have an LM that's gonna keep the summoner mezzed, what you're gonna need to do is send your DPS to go kill the summoner, and then you can start working on Thrang. Thrang will become resistant to any DPS on it, and you need to drag him over to a fumarole. The fumarole will start inducting, and then when the fumarole explodes, it puts a red puddle on the floor. Thrang needs to be in that red puddle to remove his buff, and then he becomes susceptible to damage, and then everybody has to wail on him and get him down. Now you'll depending on the amount of DPS that you have, will really determine and affect how many fumaroles you need to drag him into. Now, you will note some fumaroles don't always become active, so if you get a dud, that's fine. Just move on to the next fumarole, rinse and repeat. One thing that's very important, if you have any other melee classes in your group, please make them aware that they need to stay away from Thrang until the red puddle drops on the floor. Once the red puddle drops from the fumarole, they can go in and start hitting Thrang again. The puddle will not do them any damage. The puddle is just an indicator on the floor to let the tank know where Thrang needs to be positioned once the fumarole goes off. As the LM, you play a very important supportive role in this fight. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that you keep all of your lures up on the boss the entire time, as it will reduce the amount of damage dealt to the entire group. When Thrang jumps down, you want to keep stun immunity up on the tank the entire time to ensure that the fight goes very smoothly and that Thrang does not stun the tank that is trying to keep aggro on everything. The other very important thing that you will need to do is once the summoner comes down the right flight of stairs and spawns right at the bottom there, your main role will be to keep that summoner dazed at all times. The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and tooltip the summoner by hovering over it and pressing H. That way you can continue to target the target assist target and put all your debuffs on whatever the group is killing at that point in time, as well as the boss, while swapping back very quickly to be able to get the summoner dazed. Doing this makes the fight go so smooth, which is why there's always almost a need to have an LM in this fight. Now you can also do this on the Berg. The Berg's range is just much shorter than the LM, so the Berg has to run back and forth more frequently in order to keep the summoner dazed at all times. The reason that you need to keep the summoner completely out of the game is because the summoner will every couple of seconds summon worms. And if there's enough worms in the arena, they will just attack everybody and wipe the entire group. And that is really all that there is to this fight. The only difference between T1 and T2 is the amount of ads that you have to deal with and how hard the boss hits. But other than that, the mechanics and the way you approach this fight is identical between Tier 1 and Tier 2. If you liked today's video, go ahead and hit the like button down below to let me know, and I'll make some more of them. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.